Okay, so we are live. So whoever has tuned in, if they can give me a heads up if we are audible and you guys can see us properly, because I don't want a situation where we are talking to ourselves. Yeah, because that has happened, and it's a really embarrassing thing. But I think my audience is now familiar with with all the embarrassments and all the nervousness I've had. So I'm not a shy person in front of my audience anymore.
I've had some live stream issues myself too, so I can relate.
Yes. Yeah, I think we are good to go. There are still people who are tuning in, and anyway, there's a bit of a lag actually. So I think there's some 10-15 seconds lag on what we say here and what they hear on LinkedIn. So yeah, that's what it is. People are still tuning in. Can anybody give me a heads up if they can listen to me? Let me check. Yeah, I got a message from my team on my Slack group. So this is we are good to go. So
Sounds good.
yeah. First of all, thanks Riley for joining in today. We had a conversation some 2 weeks ago regarding the case study that we published just yesterday,
Yeah.
and yeah, it was a great conversation. About, I don't know, cash flow, then factors, then what we can do together as customers, then the transition to partner customer, everything, and how we can help each other as marketers. So yeah, glad that you came today on such a short notice. I'll let you do the introduction of yourself now.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, Priyanka. Hey, everyone, I'm Riley Timmons. I lead marketing at Cashflow. And as you might know from the title, I'm a marketing team of one. So we're going to dive into all the fun stuff, tips and tricks for that. If you're not familiar with Cashflow, we're a deal closing platform specifically for SaaS companies. So we focus on CPQ, billing, and subscription management, kind of packing that all into one platform to make it super easy to quote, close, expand, and renew SaaS deals. With a big focus on making it easier for the buyer to, actually buy your software and making it easy for the rep to get the quote in the prospect's hands. But yeah, super, super excited to be here.
Thanks for the introduction. It's great actually. Um, so the reason I approached you for a similar sort of title or a theme was that my audience consists of a lot of smaller stage startups, right? Like less than 1 million in revenue or 1 to 5 million in revenue, and most of these companies are run by that solo marketer who wears all the hats, right? So
Yep.
you've got a marketing strategy which is very high level. That's going to be you. You have a marketing activity plan, that's going to be you. Blog needs writing, it's going to be you. Website needs updating, it's all going to be you, right? So there is no chance of stratification in this sort of a role. At the same time, I think that this is a very fun sort of a role where you get to build things from scratch. And that sort of self satisfaction is like out of the world, right? Where you build things from scratch, you make a company for company's marketing go crazy, and yeah, I think that is what my audience consists of. um, my questions will mostly revolve around what tactics have you used as a solo marketer? Because I know there are like 500 things
Mhm.
in like 65 days. So
Yep.
yeah, and I believe that there is something that solo marketers do which is very different from how bigger companies would run, right? So yeah, how do you manage those multitude of tasks and responsibilities as a solo marketer? How do you delegate, even to like other stratas of your company, or how do you prioritize it?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think my favorite thing about working on a small marketing team, which I typically always have, I think my biggest was 4 people, and yeah, my smallest was just myself. But the most fun thing is, you get to decide what to work on. The downside is you're going to be on the hook for the results, but
Yeah.
I'd say 90-95% of the things I work on, it's sort of up to me what to
Hmm.
do. So you get to try a bunch of different areas. For myself, I have a growth marketing background, so a lot of paid performance ads and SEO, very sort of close to the pipeline. But yeah, I've also learned a few like really important pillars to kind of keep you moving fast. So one of them is having a really good freelancer network.
Hmm.
I'm not going to claim to do it all myself. I work with some great freelancers and contractors and even some small agencies. And there's some freelancers in particular I've worked at across like 3 different companies. So when you find a really good freelancer, whether it's like a graphic designer, a video editor, a Webflow developer, you typically tend to bring them to your next company that you go to. And it's really great because they sort of already know your style. You can ramp up really quickly. You still have to give them like overview and context of the new company, but
Yeah.
just the the initial awkwardness of giving feedback and learning how to work with the person is already taken care of. So that's a really good place to start, I would say.
Right, absolutely. So now I have a follow-up question to that, right? So when you pair up with freelancers from different sort of arenas, don't you think that it becomes much more tough to like explain them the entire scene at your company, then give them the entire context of what is going on, and then having that sort of synchronized work is a bit difficult. Like that's what I have seen, but
Mhm.
would love to know how you work around that.
Yeah, definitely. And this is why I'd actually recommend staying away from the kind of like do it all agencies. Like for example, we work with one agency, Spear Growth from India, and they're great, but we just use them for SEO and a little
Hmm.
bit of analytics. So one tip is whether you're hiring an agency or a freelancer, just get them for one thing. So at least starting off, like they're going to be mostly execution and you're still going to want to drive the strategy.
Hmm.
And then, as you kind of get some results, you can kind of pass off a little bit more strategy work to them. And, it goes from giving very specific directions to actually taking ideas. But
Yeah.
for example, even with the ads that we create, I started off like hand drawing all of them. Even for some of the more like obscure ones, I'll hand draw them. I'm not a very good artist, and I'm not a very good graphic designer, but I can kind of come up with the ad ideas and just make it as like clear as possible for whichever designer we're working with to execute on it. So yeah, you really want to set them up for success. I would say another thing, especially early on, is giving them like a ton of examples from companies that you do like, so they can kind of match the style or get some ideas from there.
Hmm.
Um, and then the last part with freelancers probably is like the project management side of it or the time side of it. And
Hmm.
freelancers especially, you actually get a pretty good advantage where they're working a lot more flexible schedule. So
Yeah.
I find with a lot of the freelancers we work with, they're going to work nights and weekends, and it's much more task based. So you can kind of get what you need earlier versus if you have an in-house person. Obviously, if you have an in-house person, they're going to have a lot more hours available to help you. But starting off when you just maybe need a few hours a week, a really good freelancer is oftentimes faster.
Right. Absolutely. Cool. I think that answers my question mostly. Before I dive into my next question, I understand that you do a bunch of things at Cashflow, right? Can you tell me what are like the top five things that are on your plate right now, or are you going to do towards the mid of this quarter? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So there's kind of two buckets. One is filling the pipeline and growing the
Yeah.
pipeline. So no matter what's on our plate, if the pipeline's down, I have to drop everything and focus on that, right? So luckily we've been pretty lucky. We've pretty consistently grown, but I've had 1 or 2 weeks where we have a big drop, and I basically just have to clear my schedule and like just fully dive into the ad networks that we're running on and basically like figure out how to fix the problem. So I'd say like, yeah, pipeline is always the most important priority. It doesn't always take up the most time. But what goes into that is, a lot of ads. So we're usually publishing a new set of like 5 to 7 ads every month. Usually 3 to 4 new video ads every quarter. And then usually, yeah, probably another 3 to 4 landing pages. So that's kind of always like top of my list. And then, yeah, like I mentioned, working with Spear Growth, we've been putting a lot of focus on SEO as well. So they'll actually, kind of come up with the topics, and then we just edit it a little bit. And but even the editing takes a good amount of time. So I'm really trying to increase our volume of SEO. So that's been a pretty good time chunk lately. We also do actually a little bit of events as well. So we're actually just preparing to go to our first event we're exhibiting at. The RevOps AF conference by RevOps Co-op. Yeah. And I think 3 weeks. Yeah. We're headed to San Diego for that. So that'll be really fun. We attend a lot of events. So like Dreamforce and Inbound, and we actually host some private dinners too. So we do a lot in the Bay Area, and kind of.
Too bad you're not in the US, North America side. Otherwise, you would have got a chance to have Cashflow's private dinners.
Well, yeah, but the great thing with this is we always partner with another company. And so, yeah, it's typically we'll invite like 30 SaaS leaders and just rent a really like nice private dining room. And it's a great way to sell up into the C-suite, where it's, usually harder to get those people's attention for 2 to 3 hours. So yeah, there's that's sort of like the channels that we're running on. And then this is timely. So like we just finished our quarter last week. So typically we'll spend, typically we do it in person in our Palo Alto office, where we'll kind of just, look back on the quarter, go what went well, what didn't, what do we want to cut, what do we want to dive into deeper, and then what are the goals for this quarter going forward. And we usually pick like 3 goals, and pretty much everything marketing related we do should feed into those 3 goals. So, even like, for example, one of our goals this quarter is, drive better awareness of how we're different. So I think people have really good awareness of like the name and maybe sort of the category that we're in, but we want people to really understand, why we're particularly better in certain areas and which type of companies are best suited for us. So now even if I'm, doing a homepage update, that's going to be very aligned to focusing on differentiation. And then,
it's so nice.
nice. And outside of that, like I'm always working super close with our sales team. So, when I used to be in office, I would always sit right beside the sales team. Cause I would want like, immediate feedback on the calls. Now, luckily we have Sybil, or everyone has a sales call recorder, so I can do it a bit more async. But I'm really trying to focus on like driving the best quality leads, for the sales team. And like shortening the feedback loop. So we're not just looking at it at the end of each month or quarter going, oh, what went wrong with the leads? We're analyzing them like every day pretty much. Yeah.
Right. Oh, I think that's quite comprehensive. And Ishan has also written, Riley is amazing to work with. Ishan is a friend, and like we've known him, at least I have known him since the last 3 years since I have worked with Factors. So he's a great friend, first of all, and a great person who runs a great agency. So reverse shout out to you, Ishan.
Definitely agree.
Yes. So I think that was quite comprehensive. So to sum it up, 2 major things, which is ads, and then I would say SEO, content related stuff, and then the third minor thing that you do here and there across quarters is hosting events, both virtual and in person, right? That's quite like a juggle, I would say. And one thing that I would like to ask you is that most of the day when people do multiple things, they're unable to concentrate on a single arena, right? So the most of the time and the most of productivity gets lost when people reset their brains to do thing. I personally can't like do ads at 10 to 11 a.m. In the morning, and then do immediately SEO right after
Yep.
at 11:30 either. So how do you sort of delegate your time across the week or across a day?
Yeah. So you're definitely right. Like, especially when it comes to something like creating new ads from scratch, like you don't always have the creative juices flowing, right? So what I'll actually do is pretty much as soon as I finish the last round of ads, I'll just start like a little list. And so
Hmm.
now for the next month, anytime I have an idea, I'll just kind of write it down there. So usually when it's time to go and create a new set of ads, I'll already have like 5 or 6 ideas that kind of like came to me at any point over the last month, um,
Hmm.
which is like a really good starting point. But yeah, you're right. Context switching is a productivity killer. I used to be at an agency actually called Divisional from Toronto. And I
Yeah.
would manage, like 5 or 6 different clients, and the context switching would just totally kill your productivity, but it was something you kind of had to do, right? So, I mean, eventually
Yeah.
I would try to schedule it where I'm only doing like one client a day, but the reality is that's not always really possible. So, yeah, I'd say like the other things I do to help that, like if I'm like, for example, yesterday I was trying to write like a video script, and I was working on it for an hour, and I kind of got the outline done, but I was just like losing steam. So you can actually kind of just switch to something that brings you a bit more energy. So whether it's like, if I don't have a ton of energy, I'll just get like some admin stuff out of the way. But if I have a good like 4 hour block, okay, this is probably a good time to like go deep on something.
Hmm.
And then, yeah, the other thing is, like you have to get really good at project management as well, of
Hmm.
other people and and like for yourself as well. So, just like really getting like confident with assigning, deadline days, and even kind of like checking in the meantime, just to make sure like you have enough big blocks of time to do the deep work. Um,
Right.
and then the other thing I'll say too on time management is there's kind of like 2 buckets of work. There's like pipeline work, which is like something that can directly drive more pipeline. And then there's prep work. So, something to help you prepare to do the work to drive more pipeline.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
and the prep work is, it's sometimes necessary, but that's like meetings, planning sessions, task scheduling, even like reporting. Like, unless you're finding really like huge insights, like reporting is actually kind of prep work. And then like interviewing and hiring, right? Like it's all stuff preparing you to do the work. But pipeline work is, if I'm working on an ad and I launch it, like that one ad could drive,
Hmm.
tons of pipeline. Or if I'm, changing the messaging on the website, like that's a huge lever to increase our conversion rate, which can drive a lot more pipeline. Or even like we do other content outside of just SEO. So if I can create like a really good like bottom of funnel guide, even if it's only relevant to 10 people, like that could drive a lot of pipeline. So you're just really trying to reduce like the percentage of time that you spend on prep work, I think is
Right.
important. And luckily when you're a small team, it's easy to do pipeline work, right? Like I probably do an hour or 2 hours max of meetings per day. So that's something really important, is like have a very clear calendar. Even if people want to meet with me, like I tell them, just like Slack huddle me, or just like call me. Like having meetings on the calendar will actually slow you
Mind
down,
block.
because
Yeah.
then, like even 30 minutes before the meeting, you're going to be like, I don't even have enough time to get into this.
Yeah.
So yeah, I actually kind of prefer like ad hoc calls for that reason. Um,
Yeah.
but I think a big thing is like I tell people at Cashflow this too. It's like I always have a list of things to do. Like the list hasn't been empty for over a year. So it's kind of like every morning you wake up, it's like, what am I not going to do today?
Hmm.
That
Hmm.
is prep work, and like what instead can I do that is, more pipeline work. So yeah, it's kind of how I think about it. Maybe they're not even the best names for those sort of things, but yeah, I think it's a good sort of framework.
Yeah, yeah. Ishan has again said that you run like amazing ads. Actually,
Oh,
I have
thanks.
also been retargeted with your ads since I've like searched for
Yeah.
cash flow on on LinkedIn, and then we have talked, and I've also searched for cash flow on Google. So I think I'm also getting cash flow ads. So I also think it's amazing, right? Like I haven't seen your video ads, but I'd love to know. I mean, I know I'm digressing from the solo marketer stuff, but
That's okay.
I'm like really, yeah, really interested in knowing how do you like go about creating those creative ads, and what is your overall ad strategy while creating, then running, then measurement, so on and so forth.
Yeah. The way I kind of look at it is you really want to like dial in your targeting. So
Hmm.
when people start, they often like they don't know who to target, they don't know what types of ads to make, and they don't know what type of landing pages. So like if it's not working, like you don't know which of the three areas to fix. So if like who like your ICP is and you have good ways to target them, like we'll use some third party tools as well just to improve the targeting.
Yeah.
But if you have confidence in that, now it's just a game of like improving the creatives, and kind of taking that approach where like they don't even need to click on the ad. We just need to get like our message across and have them see it like everywhere all the time. I mean, not to the point where it's like super spammy, but even for us, like our audience, it's like 15,000 people. So it's really
Hmm.
not that many from a advertising perspective.
Yeah.
But they're seeing probably 2 to 3 ads from us per day. And even in my campaigns, I like to run like 10 plus ads in each campaign because I kind of
Okay.
take the approach like we want to tell them, what problem area we're solving, what category that we're in, what features specifically actually help us solve that problem, and
Hmm.
social proof, kind of like confirming everything we were saying is true. So like customer marketing pretty much.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's cool now, because like now we don't really have to make too many campaign targeting changes. It like
Hmm.
the creative does the targeting really. So really what we're testing is different problem areas. We actually kind of focused lately too on like getting a point of view across. So actually like taking a stance on one side, like for example, CPQ shouldn't be a cost center anymore. Like you should be able to get like an ROI on your CPQ, like a lot of other tools people use. So yeah, that's kind of loosely how I look at it.
Right. Understood. So another question: how does your ad strategy look between channels? Google, Meta, then there's LinkedIn, who's like hitting boundaries on ads. That their entire ad strategy is going to get only better,
Yeah.
and they have like so many things coming out. But I'm interested to know, how do you allocate budget, energy, efforts into all these three channels?
Yeah. Well, it's funny. My last three companies, the ads have been the biggest channel, but it's been a different platform each time. So
Oh.
for us now, it's LinkedIn. The one before was Facebook ads. The one before that was Google ads.
Hmm.
So yeah, especially as a marketing team of one, like you really want like the deep sort of T-shaped marketing skills.
Yeah.
But even within ads, you want to be able to run the ad channel that performs best for your audience. So Cashflow, like we're a SaaS company selling to other SaaS companies.
Hmm.
It was pretty obvious like it was going to be LinkedIn, but I had never run LinkedIn as one of like my main channels, so I really had to like learn the ins and outs of LinkedIn specifically. But yeah, kind of the way I look at it, is LinkedIn's like our cold prospecting and retargeting channel. So we're
Hmm.
we're sourcing new demand from LinkedIn and retargeting on there. Just because our audience is on there during the day, they're in like the business mindset, and like the ad real estate is great. Like you get big blocks versus like Facebook. But
Hmm.
Facebook is a great retargeting channel too. So we actually do a little bit of cold prospecting. It's probably, 10 to 20% of the budget that LinkedIn ads has, but it's still, performing enough. And we actually, we get a lot of leads like late at night, funny enough, on LinkedIn. So it's like when people are just scrolling Instagram, or sorry, on Facebook. So people are scrolling Instagram, they'll convert there. And then we run Google ads too. So a little bit mostly just like branded Google ads. We do a little bit of prospecting, but for us, because we only sell to SaaS companies, it's kind of hard to get the firmographics on Google. But yeah, essentially when it comes to budget, it's like we have a pretty good sense of what each channel drives, and our measure there is qualified pipeline. So of the companies that make it to, 2 or more sales calls, we can usually assign like a potential deal value, and then we're using that potential pipeline against our spend. And we have certain metrics that we look for there. But essentially you just try to scale the one until you get diminishing returns, or until you max it out. And then also on the side, you're always trying to build other non-performance channels, which is, why we're focusing on content and events a little lately. Yeah.
Events remind me, just digressing a bit, events remind me of the time when you told us that your CEO found our CEO who was wearing like a bright red jacket in like an event last year. I think it was SaaStr or Inbound, I don't remember exactly, but how do you even get this attribution? But had I not been on the call, the case study call with you, I would have never known.
A memorable red jacket is a good way for people to remember where they saw people. So maybe that's an event attribution tip.
It's actually the factors red, right? The name tag that we have here, the logo, everything is so red out here. Like it stands out as we are like crazy red people. But that was a customer. So I think we got the jackets ROI out.
So, that's good.
Yes. So now that we're at the attribution part, I obviously know that you have a certain metrics that you need to report to your CEO. That is like on the post ad running part, right? Then I remember you said that you also got a great feedback loop with your sales team, right? And that is not a monthly thing or a quarterly thing. It's just like a constant thing that is happening with your sales. And this is what we tell most of our customers and prospects that come to us, and something that we learn as well, as a young company, which is marketing's entire point of existing is to help get revenue, to make life easier for sales teams, right? Otherwise we should not just exist as a department. So my question here is that how do you ensure the feedback loop is like smooth, and then that is happening in regular intervals? It's not one off, and do you use something which helps you to do that? And how just your entire process around that.
I think the biggest tip would be, especially early on, but pretty much the whole time, like watch your recorded sales demos, especially the intro demos, right? So even for me, a year and a half in, I'm not going to say like 100%, but probably 80% of every intro demo, I'm watching the first 5 minutes. So I really want to understand when the prospect comes in, one, like how did they find us? Where did they find us? But also like, what do they think we do? So I really want to understand like the difference between how people perceive what we do and what we actually do. And then I'm looking, for like commonly occurring questions, because then that's something, we can help answer better in ads or on the website. And then other things, I'm looking for is like, okay, even after the demo, what questions are still remaining? And then, because then it's on marketing for us to bring in leads that like don't just want to book a meeting, but they like want to buy the product, right? Like you really want to bring people in who are looking to buy instead of like looking to evaluate. And like, obviously there's always going to be evaluation. Like very rarely are you going to be the only demo they're doing. But the more you can get them down the cycle of understanding, what you do, who you're for, and how you're different, the faster the sales cycles are going to be, the lower the CAC's going to be. So that's one thing, is like just get into the demo library. And then actually something I do too is we like, can take certain clips and then tag them and like put them into folders. So we can basically, just search for like the CPQ tag, and we'll find all of the, the pain points that people have around their current CPQs. And now we can go and like use that for marketing, or use it for ads to like speak really well to the CPQ pain areas. Outside of recorded sales calls, I would say, like having regular sync. So we have like a Monday and a Friday sync, just kind of getting aligned on like, what we're going to do for the week and how the week went. I would also say, depends on how big your sales team is, but if you can work with the sales team to like create certain assets, even if it's, like you're not reviewing lead quality, if you just kind of like work on a project together, like one, you're going to get to know that salesperson better, but you're going to understand as well, like how they think, and then they're going to understand how you think. So like sales and marketing is never going to agree on everything. There's always going to be some disagreements, but the better you can understand like how you're each approaching it, like the quicker you can kind of find like a middle ground of how to do something. So I think a combination of all those, but really at the end of the day, it's like just have a communication line, because the bigger the companies get, the more like divided sales and marketing gets. And another actually big thing is the handoff, right? So you don't just want to like hand off form submissions, because then they're going to have to go and like chase the like. So really, like at our handoff, we're handing off when the demo is booked, but I'm still following that lead all the way up until they get qualified, right? So if they don't get qualified, I want to understand like what was wrong with this lead. Like, is it certain geographies? Like we run into international banking restrictions sometimes. Right. So, we're trying to figure out like which country should we exclude, or, if they already use this certain tool, then we just can't work with them for whatever reason. So, the faster you can understand like who a bad fit is, the quicker you can get, more good fits.
Absolutely. Right. I'll just like take a moment and ask for a shameless plug. So I understand that you use factors for alerting, right? Like what you said right now, passing just form fills is quite a wasteful thing to do with your sales team, and then they'll be like, bro, why are you doing this to us? We just have to go again. It's not qualified. But what we do at Factors as well is that we run ads on LinkedIn. We have like a different ebook campaign going on maybe, and then there are like bunch of people who are engaging on content per se, from a particular content per se, and we make them into segments. I understand Yogesh has also done that for you, right? We put them into segments, and we automate all this stuff into our Slack. And if our sales team is more productive, they just push it to Apollo, and then they have their sequence running and all of that. I'm just curious to know, how does that work for you in Cashflow?
Yeah. So we you're right. We use Slack alerts. We use lots of factors reports. So I think like the immediate benefit I got was on the attribution side. And you can see more in the factors case study about that, but just being able to track like all the different touches that someone takes. And the big one for us was like LinkedIn ad impressions before they convert. Like, we had a lot of people that were just coming in on a branded Google ad or branded organic search. So it's like, we really don't know how they originally found us. But now we actually use alerts as well. So the big one we're kind of focused on right now is the close loss returning. So we have a Slack channel. Anytime a past close loss deal comes back to our website, we'll get an alert. And then the ones that hit a certain threshold, like, they come back 2 or 3 times, or they spend, 5 or more minutes. As long as they didn't close loss in the last like 2 months, We're typically like either personally outreaching to them or putting them in a sequence. And yeah, just that like little like advantage of knowing, like the same day or the same hour they came back really helps you like get the timing benefits of like, okay, cash flow is still fresh in their mind. And they're going to be a lot more likely to like want to revisit. Whereas, if we didn't have that alert or that insight, we would just be like hoping they come back to us, which especially for close loss deals, they're not very often going to come back on their own. Like they need some sort of update on how you fixed the thing or how you improved for the reason that they didn't buy from you the first time. But the first step in that is getting the insight that they are actually coming back. So yeah.
Right. Absolutely. Makes sense actually. And one more thing that I had in my mind, that when you automate these stuff, right? Like the sales team also has to know that marketing's task is not to tag them in the notification, right? I'm just curious on your sales process. Like, how do they take all of these things and activate? If you have some insight on that.
Yeah, for our inbound leads or for our like outbound.
Both. Yeah, I'm
for
curious
both.
on both, how both the channels work.
Yeah, so inbound, it's usually a pretty smooth flow. Like a lead will come and fill out our form, and then they get redirected to a calendar page where they can actually book their own demo. And a big thing for me is calendar availability. So I always like stress like have as much availability as possible, because if someone doesn't immediately see a time that works for them, they're not going to email you and be like, hey, is there extra time? They're just not going to book. So then it's up to you to go and chase them down. And like the drop off between if they book their own demo versus having to go and get it booked is huge. It's probably like 30-40%. So many companies are just like leaving that on the table by not allowing them to book their own demo. And now obviously you have to, factor in like qualification stuff and scheduling stuff. But the good news is if you're at a smaller company, it's actually very easy to manage on your own. And then as you get bigger, you can look at like a Chili Piper or something like that to help. So yeah, essentially like an inbound will book their own demo. And then I'm typically just adding a salesperson to the call. We actually have like some AI workflows, which will go and do like a summary of the company. A big thing for us too is we want to know the number of sellers. So like in LinkedIn Sales Nav, you can just filter to sales department. So there's a lot of this stuff, like just in the last year, you can automate a little bit now, which is nice. And then for the outbound deals, like we're not too heavy into outbound, but for our close loss returning, essentially like anyone on our team can just say like, I'm going to take this one. And, they'll just add a Slack comment, like an emoji, and then they'll go and message them. And then if no one takes it, I'll typically just sequence them in a bit of a more generic sequence. So
yeah. Understood. Yeah. So yeah, I think more or less I'm clear on your processes. I remember you saying that you also do like video ads, 4 to 5 video ads per month or something like that.
Yeah, maybe more like 3 to 4 a quarter. They take a little longer. But yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm just curious to know, how do you manage all of these things being a single person? Because it blows my mind just to like listen to you, since we have like different departments who are doing different things. But I am particularly interested in how do you prioritize video ads, and then get that into production, then post production, then run ads. I'm just very curious on your ad strategy for videos.
Yeah, well, so yeah, like good freelancers really, really help. And it's not like, you always want to keep the same ones. Like, I think it's important to like explore new options sometimes too. So yeah, I've gotten lucky and like I found some good video people in the past to work with. But one of my other big points actually is to like do all of this, you kind of have to get comfortable with shipping something at like 80%. So, like if something is, mostly that, like if you ship at 80%, you can ship like 5 times the amount of things as if it's at 100%. And usually that 20% difference, it usually doesn't make that much of a difference. So like even the way I kind of explain it internally is if we're spending too long on feedback on something, I'll just be like, we have to ship this. And then if the pushback is like, well, don't you agree? Like we could make it a little bit better. I'll be like, yeah, like it could be better, but it's just not going to make a difference, right? Like if we can get 5 times the amount of stuff out there, people are going to be so happy with like they're not going to know it could have been a little bit better, right? But if you're only shipping one thing a week instead of 5 things a week, now like if that one thing doesn't resonate with them, like they're not going to care. Like they would much rather have the 4 additional things. And then, even like on top of that, like you can still clean up the last 20% after you ship it. But yeah, I just think it's so important to just like keep shipping things. And also like a big thing, especially like maybe people earlier on in their marketing career might run into is like branding, right? Like if you get pushback like, oh, this isn't on brand, this isn't, like high enough quality. You kind of have to think like if we're an early stage company, like we're not known for our brand yet, right? Like we're still very much building the brand. All we can really control is like our output of activities and assets. So that's what you should opt for, right? Like don't be too nervous about brand early on. Even for us, like we have brand colors that we'll use like on the website and printed materials. But I always say like we'll try any color in our ads, right? Like whatever color gets the attention is the better color for that ad. So yeah, you kind of want to think about it like that a little bit too. Just like ship at 80 or 90% and like opt for doing more. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the feedback loops really end up becoming loops.
Yeah.
And it just I personally do feel that frequency is more important than a like quality of work, whatever that means, right? So I remember when we used to sort of do these creative stuff, and forget about that. Even when I started writing on LinkedIn, I used to think 500 times before hitting the post, but actually the public doesn't perceive it that way. They really don't care about how well can it become. They just know that okay, this person is going to write, and eventually even if there has been a great mess up in the past, they don't remember it. And I feel that is what should be the spirit of people who are trying to get started on things. Less of loops and more of work going around that, right? So this is the first point. And second point is that if we ship, like you said, if we ship 5 things in a week, and if we ship like one thing in a week, the 5 things will get feedback from the audience much more than that one thing would. So your feedback is your audience, right? You'll eventually get it in some or the other way.
And like a lot of times people, they get scared when you're like ship things at 80%. And people just think like, oh, that must be low quality. But if you can do 5 things like at 80%, your 80% is going to be better than your 100% if you're doing only one thing a week, right? So you'll just naturally get way better the more reps you do. So yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And this is something that I have actually learned over the years in my professional career. I think, especially when you're in a field which is like a lot of creative juices come into play when you're in marketing, or even when you're in sales, right? That one email should be so nice that that there should be no like no mistake in that one email. But it's actually not like that. Like you can't scale in such a mindset. I think that's what I had to ask you. But I think we'll take some questions out there. We have some questions on the comment box. If you guys have some more questions, we have another 5-10 minutes that we can talk about. But Greg has a question for you. I believe this is a question. Getting socials aligned with our copywriter, aligned with the events coming up, is something I've been struggling with. Yeah, I think he's asking a question. How do you help him on this?
Yeah. Hey, Greg. Getting socials aligned with a copywriter for an event. I would say like kind of just give the advice we were just talking about, right? Like it's better just to try. I mean, I know it's like if you tell them that it might not work automatically. But I think the big thing about promoting you're going to be at an event is just people knowing you're going to be there, right? So it's like the real marketing will come at the event. You're just trying to have people, show up to your booth or like show up to the event in general. So yeah, I think with like event marketing, it's just making a post like every couple days leading up to it. But it's mostly logistics, right? Like you're just trying to give people the place, time, and details of why they should come. So yeah, you don't have to like oversell why they should go. It's people usually like going to events because it's fun and they meet other people there. So yeah, I would talk more about like how fun it's going to be versus like why they should specifically go to learn A, B, or C. Yeah.
Post idea. You should write it in a post, maybe. Why
Yeah.
they why events are the greatest thing in the world in like centuries. So
Yeah.
yeah. So Greg has another question. My team has high level staff who likes to focus on small details like voice, look, feel, and social post. That really slows us down.
Yeah.
Anyone had this experience with this? I think I'll just take like 30 seconds and then Riley can maybe talk about it. Yeah, so in my opinion, right, like this is very normal. I've seen this happen across companies, and if it's like really big company, they're even more detail oriented and whatever that means, right? So that sort of a thing actually does slow them down. It's very common, but look at it in that sense, right? Whether a small team or a big team, think of it like you have to get started. It's like public speaking, right? We talk with our friends really casually,
Yeah.
and because we know that there is no inherent consciousness that there are going to be 400 people who are going to judge us. But in reality, those 400 people who are like listening to your debate or your speech in a public speaking forum, they really don't care about you. They actually are there just to like listen to you. They don't really pay that much attention. Even if they do, they forget. That is how social media works, I would say, both in terms of organic and okay, for paid, maybe if you're investing budget, you need to get a little bit better. But just to get started and just to have that frequency, right? I would suggest that do whatever you think is best. Don't go into that loop, which is feedback loop, which is a great term to use, but not for things when it comes to you where you have to ship things early, right? I would say that do whatever you think is the best, and once you do it frequently, the feedback will come to you. And I don't think there is anything wrong with being a little bit yourself on social media. Maybe people won't like it, but trust me, they just don't remember what you've
Yeah.
done. Yeah, they
Yeah.
only care what value you give. Yeah, Riley, yeah, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I think I understand this question, right? Because we're
Yeah.
saying like, oh, just do it, but like, if you have a boss who's saying no, don't do it, well, you obviously can't do it, right? So there's a couple ways around this. So one is it's you could always just do the thing you wanted to do, but for yourself. So like, even if it's not promoting the company's event, you can promote something else that you made, but do it in the
Yeah.
style that you want and show like, hey, look, like this way that I'm recommending to do things for the company, it's very much working for myself. Maybe we should try it. And then that's the second way, right? Is just frame it like, can we just do one test to see how it goes? So typically people that are giving pushback on voice, look, and feel, if you say like, hey, look, I get it, but can we just test it just this one time? It's usually going to work, and then you're going to have like the results of, okay, we did it this way, it worked, maybe let's like lean into this a bit more. And because the one of the annoying things about marketing is like almost everyone thinks they can do it, right? Especially when you like get up into leadership. So and it's also very much in public, so people just naturally give unwarranted feedback sometimes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that is like something you have to deal with. But if you can start showing just like incremental things with small tests, pretty quickly you can work your way up into doing it. The reason that they give the pushback in the first place is because they think if we do this, we're going to have some consequences, whether customers will leave or investors will get mad. But a lot of times the people they're concerned about, like, you should always be concerned about in customers, but a lot of times people they're concerned about aren't even people that would buy from you, right? Like it's investors a lot, or it's like friends of other companies, or people that work in completely different industries. It's like those people, you shouldn't, like, you should think about them, but you should always prioritize what the customer will think about it, right? Like if
Right.
we've had people email like us sometimes and be like, I see your ads way too much. It's annoying. You should stop this. And then we look at their LinkedIn and they're like, not a SaaS company. They're like an accountant at like a big four firm or something, right? So it's like, okay, well, like, we shouldn't care at all what this person says because they're not ever going to buy from us. If it was
Right.
one of our customers being like, hey, I'm annoyed of seeing your ads, like we would like consider, like, we would just exclude them or like tone it back for the customers. But yeah, any decision should be fully based on like, what does the market that I'm selling to want? Like, are they used to seeing social posts or event posts in this other format? Maybe we should try to match that.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I think that was quite a wholesome answer, really. I think you covered what I missed, which is if there is no no green light, you just can't
Yeah,
go. Yeah,
yeah,
that
exactly.
yeah, yeah. We have another question from Matthew. When you're a one-member team or even a bootstrap business, the quality of content that you put out has a lot with the traction that you get. What are the things to note when you put out the content organically? I believe he's talking about both social media and like traditional content, SEO, all of that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So the content we focused on at the very beginning was, we'd sort of identified our top persona, which is RevOps at
Hmm.
SaaS companies.
Yeah.
So I think the first thing I did, and honestly, I borrowed the idea, but it was like the idea that I had saw was the financial stack for CFOs at
Hmm.
every stage of growth. So I just took the idea and I did, okay, here's like the RevOps stack cheat sheet. So it's all the way from like seed stage to Series D. What's like an ideal RevOps stack? And like, we organically worked our way in there. But even in the, like, I think the seed stage, we said like, you don't even really need us. Like, if you're pre-seed, like, you can get away with like a Pandadoc or something. But
Hmm.
that blog did really good. And it actually, like, we weren't even trying to, but it ranked for like RevOps stack, the keyword. And
Yeah.
we still like promote it in our content campaign on LinkedIn. And like, it's so
Hmm.
evergreen that we source deals from it still. So the sort of level of content you want to make like early on is, if I, promoted this as an ad on LinkedIn and when they clicked it, it just went to the blog, would that on its own be able to source a couple deals? And you don't need a
Hmm.
ton, right? Like, if it sources like one a month at the start, like
Hmm.
that's pretty good. But
Hmm.
yeah, you kind of want to, you start like as bottom of funnel as possible and think like, even for our 10 active deals, what's something that would help them? Because you want your content to drive conversions, at least at first, and then you get,
Hmm.
work your way up the funnel and use it more as like a traffic acquisition source. But
Hmm.
yeah, I would say to begin, like, don't expect it to acquire much traffic, but expect it to help convert the traffic you already have, because that's where you'll get the biggest lift early on.
Understood. Yes. Yeah, we have one more question by Brody. What's your feeling remarketing ads? Okay, I think it's what's your feeling about remarketing ads? I thought that feeling remarketing ads. I just,
Yeah.
it sounds so funny. Versus prospecting. I feel like Cashflow has
Yeah.
a really great remarketing strategy that spans across multiple channels. Yes, I have been retargeted by their marketing ads, so I can confirm. Yes.
Yeah. You definitely need both. Um, I think in terms of breakdown, right? Like we'll probably do 70% prospecting, 30% retargeting. Um,
Mm.
and it would probably be even less when you're starting, right? Because your retargeting pool is just naturally going to be small when you start.
Yeah.
Even now, like our retargeting pool is like maybe 4 or 5 thousand people, but uh, the thing with retargeting is like you only want to retarget, the ICP companies or the relevant companies. So I'm a little less strict with my parameters on retargeting because I think like if they came to the website, like there's probably a reason. So I'll do a little bit wider range of employee size, a little bit wider range of geography, and even but when it comes to industry, like we're still only going to retarget SaaS companies really. Um, but I think the goals are a little different, right? So, um, prospecting is really like you're creating the demand because you're inserting your ad into someone's feed that wasn't looking for it or expecting it. So it really has to like get them curious. But then a retargeting ad, it should really, like capture the demand that is either already there or that
Mm.
you created, a few months ago.
Mm.
Um, and so honestly, like my creatives, like I typically run them in cold prospecting and retargeting, but there's different ad types that definitely do better in retargeting than prospecting. So retargeting, like a natural one is the social proof sort of ads, right? Because they know what you do, they know who you're for. They just need like a little bit more proof that you do what you say you do. So that's where like especially on Facebook, like customer testimonial video ads do really good. Even if you just take like your G2 or like your written quotes and just turn them into like, a bit of an animated video, like that can do pretty good. Um, and then the expectation, so like your CAC should be quite a bit lower on retargeting than cold prospecting, right? And your CTR should be higher on retarget. Like if your CTR is lower in retargeting than cold prospecting, like there's some sort of issue going on because those people should be a lot, closer to converting. But overall, like I guess my answer is like I don't think about it too differently. Like
Yeah.
I think a big mistake is people try to create like individual ads for individual campaigns early on. But then what you do is you just like essentially you oversaturate the one ad for the one group of people, but then they miss out on all these other ads that they might have, liked more and converted them more. So um yeah, I think that's kind of a good approach. But yeah, definitely a good question.
Yes, yes. I think that's great. I think you should write like a big long form article on how you do these because you have some like really good insights and it comes from a perspective of practicality, right? It's not just like theorized stuff. You've done that for Cashflow. You've done that previously at your previous organizations. Yeah, it's great. I don't see any more questions on the comment box, but I'll just still check it out. No, we don't have any other questions on the comment box, but yeah, I have like one last question, which is um, how do you manage expectations of business leaders who may have unrealistic, demands or assumptions, or they want you to do 500 things that a marketing department should do, right? There has to be some strategy where you say that, hey,
Yeah.
we need to prioritize this over this, so this can't happen for the next 6 months. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, a big thing that I think I've gotten better at recently is aligning to the goals for the quarter, right? So when we do these like offsite quarterly syncs,
Yeah.
that week is our time to talk about all the ideas.
Hmm.
So like these are big like 3 hour long in the boardroom brainstorming sessions, but we want to get like all the possible ideas out then so
Hmm.
that when we do decide on our goals, we can say, okay, any idea that anyone has, does it fit into these goals? And then if it does, like, okay, we'll do it. If it doesn't, this is why we're not doing it. And then like stick to the plan for the quarter. It's like
Hmm.
it's really important to, you know, at least for like the overall goals and like the process changes, like stick to it at least for 1 quarter, because that's pretty much how long it takes to see the results or not, right? Obviously there's some things you'll have to change and adapt to, but yeah, I think that's a good one. And then another big one too, right, is especially like leadership, they'll see other companies and the question is like, why aren't we doing something like this, or why aren't we doing this? So if you can like understand like why that company is doing it that way, for example, like we have some competitors that like they do a ton of events, like they'll do a ton of in-person events. So it's like, oh, okay, like why aren't we doing more in-person events? But we can say, well, like this is their main strategy, right? Like we know that they're not advertising as much on LinkedIn, so they have to do this because they rely on it. Like it's their best channel, so they're going to do the channel that's best for them.
It's different.
Yeah, but that's why they're doing it. So if you can get to the reason and explain like this is why we think they're doing it, then it's a lot easier to stick to your plan or stick to the campaign you want to do.
Absolutely, I think that's a great insight. Yeah, I think that's all I had from my side. We've been talking for over an hour now.
Yeah.
And I thought we'll wrap up by, I don't know, some 45 minutes at max, but you've been at it since the last 1 hour. Yeah, we don't have any other questions. I have like completed my set of questions. So time to wrap up. I'd say thanks for everybody who joined in. I'm going to clip out some portions of this, and I'm going to put it on LinkedIn. There will be a YouTube recording as well on Factors.ai channel. In case you want to see the recording will be there on LinkedIn as well. But yeah, thanks everyone for joining in, and it was great talking to you, Riley. Thanks for coming.
You too, Priyanka. Thanks for having me.
No worries.